Hi and welcome to the next tutorial. In today's lesson we will recreate this ball bouncing up and down using Adobe After Effects. So anyways guys, let's jump in. So the first thing you need to do is you need to import your assets by going into File, Import. You need to import your background, you can leave it as a merged layer, and then you need to import your tennis ball. Now the tennis ball, we don't want a merged layer, we just want to make sure that we choose the object layer, and then we can press OK. So now we can drag both of those to the timeline. So if your tennis ball has a background behind it, just re-import it, but only select that layer. Now the tennis ball is too big, so we are going to bring down that scale roughly to about 8. And cool, and we're just going to move it up here. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to find where we want the ball to bounce from. So I'm just going to press Ctrl R to bring out my rulers, and I'm just going to draw a line just around there so I know where the ball bounces and where it can hit. So once we've done that, we then can go and press P for position, and now we can start to actually animate. We first need to separate the values X and Y by right clicking on position, and now you can separate the dimensions, and this just means that you can animate those areas individually. So I'm just going to have my ball there ready. I guess I don't need my rulers anymore. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the stopwatch. I'm going to make sure that I am at the first frame. Well, actually, I'm just going to bring this timeline a little bit shorter. So I'm just going to trim comp to work area. So I'm just going to go and animate that by clicking the stopwatch. Okay, and then I'm going to move forward 20 frames by pressing Shift and page down. So the first one was 10 frames, the second one was 20 frames, and then I'm just going to bring that ball down until it hits that line. Cool, so if I go back and play through that, there you go, we have animation working. So what I need to do is I need to turn these keyframes into easy ease by right clicking on that. And now I can go into my graph editor. So now we've got this graph editor, and now we can start to, if you click on the keyframe, you can pull these little handles, and that will create different levels of acceleration and deceleration. So looking at our graph that we want to kind of reproduce, we want to have a bounce that kind of brings the ball back up and then comes back down, and then it repeats for 4 or 5 bounces. So right now we've only got one bounce, so we need to make sure that we can get the next one. So if this first lot was only 20 frames, the next bounce is going to be 16 frames. So what we need to do is hold Shift, press page down, and then let go of Shift, and then just page down 6 times. So that's at 16 frames. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control, and I'm just going to put another keyframe in there. And once we've done that, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Now we can create another bounce. So I'm just going to bring it up probably to about maybe about there. And cool. And so now when we play that back, the ball drops, hits the ground, and then it comes back up again. So we're going to do this for, I don't know, 4 or 5 different bounces, and we're going to gradually get this even smaller as we get to the end. So the next one is going to be roughly around 12 frames. So I'm just going to hold Shift and then page down twice, and we're going to put in another keyframe there, and then just going to grab this. Now you might have to hold Alt to break them apart, or you have to zoom in, and once you do that you can then grab it and you can drag it out. So we're just going to make that probably about halfway of that first curve, So we've got it from about there, and we're just going to have it roughly to about there. It doesn't have to be that perfect. So now when we play that back, bounces, and cool, we've got 2 bounces. So we're gonna repeat the same process again. This time we're gonna go out 10 frames. So shift, page down, hold control, another keyframe, zoom into that, and hold alt to be able to drag that out. And just going to draw another curve. You can zoom out by holding alt and scrolling on your mouse wheel. So we're just going to put that into there, and we'll do another one, 8 frames. So shift, page down, but now we'll go page up twice. Hold alt to grab that, and we're just going to bring it probably around about there. So the next one is going to be, we'll go 6 frames. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll go 4 frames. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll go to that bar there, and then we'll just do one last one, which will only be 2 frames. So 1, 2. Cool. So now once you have that curve, now it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to sort of, you know, these things have to be nearly half of each other as they go down. So the ball bounces up, down, 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 down. And it looks pretty good so far. But the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to just make that animation a little bit quicker. So right now it's still it's pretty slow. So what we can do is we can go and highlight all of these, right? And we can now drag that to roughly about 2.5 seconds. So now if I play that, okay, that's looking a little bit more realistic. So that's pretty cool. And you can, look, you can modify this. You can go to 2 seconds if you really wanted to. All right, maybe that's a bit too fast. So I'll leave it at 2.5. So that's the y-axis. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make this ball come in from the left to the right. So what we need to do is we need to animate the X position. So I'm going to start at keyframe 1. I'm just going to get off the graph editor, and I'm just going to move that off the screen, and then I'm going to move forward in time to probably around about 3 seconds, and I'm just going to move it until it sort of hits that bookcase at the end. And then I'm just going to make these easy ease keyframes. Okay, so now when I play that back, so the ball is bouncing, and then it kind of just stops just before that little cupboard thing. Now we don't need 10 seconds. This clip will probably only go to about 4 seconds. So I'm just going to bring my clip a little bit shorter. So we have that. Now we're going to go back into the graph editor, and what we need to do is we need to click on the X position. So if you wanted to adjust any of these kind of settings, we're just going to bring that out a little bit, which just increases the distance between how the ball bounces and then it comes to a stop. So you can adjust it just by holding this, and you can see how it's automatically moving. So anyways, the last thing that we need to do is we need to add some rotation to this ball. So this is quite easy. So I'm just going to get off the graph editor. I'm just going to press R for rotation. I'm going to start the keyframe over here, move to the end of our clip where the ball rolls, and I'm just going to put that 2, and I'm just going to bring this number up, and we're just going to have to see how that looks. So I'm just going to make them also easy ease. Cool. So now it rotates, and that's really cool. The final thing that we can add to this animation is a bit of squash when the ball actually hits the ground, and we can do this by using scale. So if I go into my scale properties by pressing S, what it is we can do is we can find the keyframe when the ball actually hits the ground. So the ball hits there, and what it is we can do is we can unlock this setting. Actually, we'll go back one keyframe and we'll set a stopwatch. We'll move forward one keyframe and we'll just change the scale to probably about, let's go half of that. And then we're going to move forward one keyframe and we'll bring that back up to 8. So now if I put them as easy ease, when the ball bounces, you can see it's got a bit of a bounce to it. Now you don't want to go too crazy on this, and even if you bring out these 2 keyframes so that there's 2 keyframes in between, it doesn't really matter. But we'll do it on the next one as well. So we'll find the keyframe where the ball hits. So we'll go back one and then we'll go forward 2, put another keyframe, but then we'll go back one and we'll just change that one to 4. Okay, so that one only has 1 keyframe in between, this one has 2, so it's much more noticeable. So it's up to you, your liking. And then we'll just do the same for this one as well. So we're gonna press this button, move forward 2 keyframes, press it again, move back one, and then put it to 4. Do the same for the next one. So this button, move forward, and then back. And then we can do the same thing here. So that will be there. And now maybe it doesn't have to bounce as much, so we can go to 6. And then the last 2 we can just leave, really. And so what that looks like is something like that. Now the final touch that you can add to this is you can add motion blur to it just by hitting this button over here, which says motion blur, and that really adds to that ball bouncing effect. And that looks really, really cool. So that's about it. You can export this and render it and put it into your other films that you're working on or anything. So anyways guys, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.